Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Very glad you're with us for the Tuesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for you today. And Jim, we've talked about this Pennsylvania fight over the Senate seat, in the courts, in the ballot counting. Dave McCormick still has the lead, and you still have Democrats in counties in and around Philadelphia trying to count ballots that the state Supreme Court has said repeatedly are not supposed to be counted because you have to have the ballots dated. And if they're not dated or they're dated past the date of the election, they can't count. And so when these counties like Bucks County, which we highlighted last week in that classic comment from their commissioner who said, nobody pays attention to precedent anymore. Everybody breaks the law. So I want the courts to see this. Well, the courts did see it on appeal from the Republicans. And yesterday in the afternoon, this court, majority Democrat, mind you, Democrat appointed by a 5-2 margin, but by a 4-3 margin, once again, reaffirming its old decision. And in its ruling, Jim, many of these key words are in all caps and boldface, just in case some of these commissioners still don't get the message. So it says, petitioner's application for the exercise of King's bench power or extraordinary jurisdiction is granted. In part, the court hereby assumes its King's bench authority over the instant application, only to direct that all respondents, including the boards of elections in Bucks County, Montgomery County, and Philadelphia County, shall comply with the prior rulings of this court, in which we have clarified that mail-in and absentee ballots that fail to comply with the requirements of the Pennsylvania Election Code shall not be counted. I feel like Gandalf here. For purposes of the election held on November 5th, 2024. The election code commands absentee and mail-in electors to date the declaration that appears upon ballot return envelopes, and failure to comply with that command renders a ballot invalid as a matter of Pennsylvania law. It doesn't get any clearer than that, Jim. So will the counties comply? I guess they have to now. And does this essentially mean that this race is over?
So first of all, I think we should just officially name this now the Dave McCormick Good Martini. He has been the feature of so many of them. Once again, listeners, this is not a rerun. I think the story is over, or it should be over here. By the way, Greg, it was a very funny line, but I will please ask you not to invoke Gandalf and the slogan, "You shall not pass," because it gives me flashbacks to all of my teachers in high school and college. All the warnings we got there. The reason they did the all caps, bold, I don't think they underlined it, but the reason the court took that step is because it would take too long to do a red flashing neon sign. We meant what we said. We did not stutter. We did not put any ifs, ands, or buts. No exceptions. No, well, Bob Casey really wants to win this election, so we're going to count them. No, none of that stuff is I stuff. We could have made, this is obviously the good martini. We could have made it a crazy martini for the explanation from Bucks County Commissioner Diane Ellis Marsiglia. As she said, you alluded to the quote earlier, "I think we all know that precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want." All right, we've played the audio in the past. You can find it online. It's there. It's on video. There's no doubt about what she said. This wasn't a bad transcription or anything like that. Well, today in the Philadelphia Inquirer, she explains that the comments were taken out of context. And what she meant, maybe it was inartfully worded. That is the favorite BS weasel word excuse. Oh, I wasn't clear enough in what I said there. What she really meant to say, allegedly, was she just didn't know how to rule because it just wasn't clear. There was just no guidance. Should we count these envelopes that don't have the date on they're legally required to, or do we not? I just can't tell. It's not like the Pennsylvania Supreme Court had said twice. In really big clear, no, you should not count it. This law stands. It is not in violation of the Pennsylvania state constitution. And but so yes, it was taken out of context. It's just so confusing. There's no way they could have known this. And I don't. You don't even get a couple of molecules of credit, Governor Josh Shapiro, because after being, man, you would have thought he was a mime this past week. You just did not hear him saying much of anything. He may have been trapped in one of those glass boxes where he couldn't be seen. finally, Shapiro comes out and says, quote, any insinuation that our laws can be ignored or do not, I should be doing my Obama impression. Any insinuation that our laws can be ignored or do not matter is irresponsible and does damage and faith to our electoral process. It is critical for counties and officials in both parties to respect it with both their rhetoric and their actions. Well, now he wants to pan out that you should be, doing this. Now that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has handed down this edict saying, stop it, stop counting ballots. We told you they are not legal. So in honor of the upcoming holiday season, welcome to the party, pal.
Exactly right. Shapiro's been such a weak vessel on this particular issue because there had been the law, first of all, which was very clear. It's literally quoted in the decision. Then you had 2 Supreme Court decisions, and he says, now that the Supreme Court has ruled this third time, now we have clarity. We needed this addition. No, we didn't need any additional clarity, Governor. You just didn't want to step in when the circumstances didn't benefit the Democratic Party. So I don't know if this is going to impact him and his electoral dreams down the road, but it was not a shining moment for Josh Shapiro.
Turns out third time is the charm. In the law, apparently. The first 2 times, Supreme Court doesn't mean it, but the third time.
Exactly. And for Commissioner Marseglia, I believe the official Democratic word for this is that you were a knucklehead and didn't understand and you didn't speak well. Isn't that the Tim Walz explanation for why he wasn't really in China during Tiananmen Square and all this alleged confusion when there really was no confusion?
Perfectly fitting. And I just want to point out, Greg, we tape this. Well, we don't tape it live. It ends up being recorded, but we're live when we're recording it, if that makes sense. Before you edit out all of my uhs and put it out there. New York Jets general manager Joe Douglas has just been fired. So you get to see my reaction of this very second. Because first of all, yes, listeners, occasionally I glance at other things while Greg is talking, but I pay absolute attention to the important parts. And our long national nightmare is over. No, I'm deeply frustrated. Anyway. Hey, you know what? We do a political podcast, not sports, so I can focus. That's okay.
Well, whether you expected a good Jets season, whether you're a Democrat who didn't get away with your attempts to really steal the Senate election, there's going to be some strong drinks flowing this evening, I suspect. And for that, I strongly recommend Z-Biotics first. Take the Z-Biotics first because while you should definitely drink responsibly, you will feel better the next morning if you take Z-Biotics before you take that first drink.
Z-Biotics, pre-alcohol probiotic drink, is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. When you drink, the alcohol in your system gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next morning. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol produces an enzyme that breaks this byproduct down. So just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, as I'm sure you always do, and you will feel your best for the next morning.
I've said it many times. My colleague here at Radio America knew his limits well. Then all of a sudden, those limits didn't work so great. Tried Z-Biotics, felt great the next morning, and has ever since. Go to zbiotics.com/3ml to get 15% off your first order when you use 3ml at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantees. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. Visit zbiotics.com/3ml and use the code 3ml at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. All right, Jim, on to our bad martini now, and a story that you have chronicled in detail for a long time now, and that is the now more than 2.5-year-long Russia-Ukraine war. You've been over there twice, and the latest developments are the subject of your morning jolt. There's been a lot of headlines in the last few days that Joe Biden has given the green light. Every story seems to use the term green light, but given authorization to the Ukrainians to use U.S.-provided long-range missiles to strike targets well into Russia. And the reactions to this have been quite varied. Some folks are saying, well, this is Biden basically teeing up World War III for Trump because Putin has now vowed that if there are long-range missile attacks from the Ukrainians, that we provided the weapons for them, that gives him authorization to use nuclear weapons. And whether he will actually do that or whether he's saber rattling, I don't know. Jim, your take is a little bit different. It's that the Biden administration had given this missile system, known as ATACMS, to the Ukrainians months ago, but only gave the authorization now. So what do you make of the Biden timing on this? What do you make of the reaction to this?
Yeah, so people might be surprised to see this in the category of bad martini. Look, I'm glad Ukraine has this authority. I think it is long overdue, ludicrously overdue, really. And I'm not too worried about, I think it does qualify as saber rattling by Putin. He's not going to launch a nuclear first strike over this. He's not going to make any direct attack on the U.S. or any of our NATO allies. He'll find some other way to mess with us. One of the ideas I've heard kicked around was increasing arms exports to the Houthis, who, as you know, are shooting at ships in the Red Sea. So the idea is, well, if you're going to arm your proxies with more, dangerous stuff, we're going to arm our proxies with more dangerous stuff. The U.S. can justifiably argue that the increased authorization for the ATACMS is a response to the Russian escalation of the fight by bringing in 10,000 North Korean troops, which apparently is what changed Joe Biden's mind on this. Ukrainians, as with every other weapon system, the Ukrainians wanted this a long time ago. The Ukrainians wanted this at least formally requested 3 months ago, end of August, beginning of September. There was also this question of whether the other long-range missiles provided by Great Britain and by France and by Germany, whether they would give authorization for striking Russian targets in Russian territory. Two reasons I'm not worried about this. One is that even this Biden, authorization comes with strings attached. I guess apparently you have to clear where you're going to target with the U.S. before you use them. And then secondly, defense experts, people look at this and say, look, this is going to help Ukraine, but this is not, it's not like you're going to suddenly see the Russian lines collapse and a giant counteroffensive get launched. This is going to have an effect on the margins. That said, I think it's good for us to not, let our decisions be vetoed by what, threats Vladimir Putin is making. But I'm not thrilled with this, in part, as I said, because this is long overdue. And I also think making any major change to your foreign policy after Election Day, it's just a bad look. If this is a good idea today or in the past few days, well, then it was a good idea in early November, and it was a good idea in October, and it was a good idea in September. By doing it a week after the election, and by, as Blinken said, we're going to send every available cent out the door to Ukraine before January 20th, that makes it look like the Biden administration really wanted to do a lot more for Ukraine, but didn't think it was going to look good before the election. And thus, in order to help Kamala Harris, they kept these decisions in reserve and waited till after Election Day. By the way, fat lot of good it did him. Did a lot of work for that. But as I kind of lay out in today's Morning Jolt, Joe Biden, in my mind, gets way too much credit for the U.S. assistance to Ukraine because he keeps talking like he's Winston Churchill. He keeps talking like this is the great cause of our time, that this is a preeminent priority of U.S. foreign policy. And then weeks go by and he doesn't talk about it at all. Now, some of this is because Biden only operates between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. There's a lot of stuff he doesn't talk about because this guy is working, 30 hours a week maximum. But I also think, look, we're approaching the third year of the war. Certainly since October 7th, Israel and the Middle East have been kind of on the front burner of U.S. foreign policy. And I think Ukraine went on the back burner. And just as I've long suspected that the hawkishness of the Democrats and the anti-Russian attitudes of the Democrats were a mile wide and an inch deep, Harris didn't mention Russia or Ukraine in her first 11 speeches. It got 2 sentences in her convention speech. It came up in the debate, and I went back and I checked. I really didn't realize it at the time. Kamala Harris talked about the Russia-Ukraine war as if it was over. We have helped preserve Ukrainian independence, past tense, like it was done. Fight's still going on. Ukraine has 80% of its territory. It's been a stalemate for the better part of a year. It's good that we gave them the additional assistance at the beginning of the year. We've killed a whole bunch of Russians, or I should say the Ukrainians have killed a whole bunch of Russians. But really, it's not like you can say there's been a clear path to victory here. And I think of the Ukraine skeptics, I think there's a lot of bad faith arguments out there. But there are good faith ones of look, I want to see Ukraine independent, protected, free, and with all of its territory, including Crimea. How do we get there? What is the plan for victory? Because it looks like right now it's just we're waiting for Russia to run out of guys, and it's a big country. It's not going to run out of guys. And the Biden administration has never done a good job with that. And it's kind of this attitude of, I think the dovish instincts of Joe Biden kick in, and or the fact that when you're operating on 30 good hours of Joe Biden a week, and he is famously indecisive in the words of CNN. Hey, Greg, do you remember hearing that Biden was famously indecisive in the run-up to the 2020 election?
Nope.
Doesn't that sound like the thing be kind of important to know before you put him? What does the president do? Oh, that's right. He makes decisions all day. That's what the whole job is. If he hates to make decisions, what are you doing in that job? But anyway, this is we're now in the final months of the Biden presidency. And now he's authorizing something he probably should have done months ago, if not years ago. It's the same thing with the Patriot missile batteries. It's the same thing with the Abrams tanks. Ukraine is always saying, we need this stuff. And Lloyd Austin and the Pentagon and the Biden administration is like, no, you don't. You'll be fine without it. Months go by. Ukrainians get killed on the battlefield. Ukrainian civilians get killed in their cities. And then the Biden administration, oh, you know what? I guess you do need it. Okay, all right, here it comes. And then it takes anywhere from a half year to a year to get there. This is no way to win a war. And I'd let you, if you, like, there's a bit like, the old saying with Napoleon, if you're going to take Vienna, take Vienna. If you're going to try to win the war, try to win the war. You can't do it with one hand tied behind your back. I have no idea what to expect from Donald Trump. One of my friends made the observation, both Boris Johnson, the former UK prime minister, and Viktor Orban, the current Hungarian prime minister, think Donald Trump agrees with them on the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, they have diametrically opposed viewpoints, so they can't both be right. But I hope that Trump does not completely abandon Ukraine. I hope that the cause of Ukrainian independence continues and does not come to a humiliating defeat. I don't think Trump wants that outcome, but we'll see. Just deeply frustrating that the Biden administration could not. They kept talking like this was the great cause of our time, but they never acted like it. And I think Ukrainians paid the price for it.
Two quick follow-ups, one serious, one definitely not. On the issue of operating this missile system, there are some people, most of whom are critical of the policy, that say that U.S. personnel have to be on the ground in Ukraine to operate it, and that would be an escalation. So what do we know about that?
Yeah, well, Ukraine has been using the ATACMS for several months now. So one of two things are the case. Either the U.S. has people on the ground, which they've been very quiet about. As far as we know, the only U.S. military personnel on the ground are the Marines there for embassy protection and maybe some special forces guys if they ever needed to evacuate quickly. By the way, it does not look like that Russia was going to, get around Kyiv since spring 2022. So that risk is probably, significantly less than it was at the beginning of the war. But apparently we don't have those guys. Now, is you operating on the Polish side of the border, and you're looking at the same data, and you're saying, here's the coordinates for where you want to strike. That may very well be the circumstance in which the U.S. is involved in the targeting, but not necessarily on the ground right next to the Ukrainian personnel operating the system. And
then on the not serious side, ATACMS, first of all, is one of the great acronyms of all time. And we know how much government loves acronyms. But if you dig in, the TAC is just from the word tactical, which is the second word in this thing. So it's a little bit forced. And it just reminds me of the great Norm Macdonald bit where he says, it's a weird abbreviation, ID, because the I stands for I, and the D stands for dentification. So sometimes the acronyms are forced, is what I'm saying.
Old school comic book geek here. And it was it ran for a bunch of seasons, had some good times, some bad times. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And in the opening scene, one of the top agents is brought in for kind of a job interview. And he says, "We are the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Law Enforcement Division. What does that mean to you?" He looks back and he says, "Somebody really wanted our acronym to spell out S.H.I.E.L.D. That's what it means to me."
Exactly. Anybody who's looked at legislation and the tortured way that the titles of legislation.
The Freedom Act. The America Act.
And then they don't actually do what they say. Like affordable care. Stuff
Patriot.
Like that. Yeah. Right. All right. Well, I'll tell you what's fantastic, and that's Omaha Steaks. Always excited to get the box from Omaha Steaks. And as I just mentioned the other day, we had the burgers the other night. I think it was Friday night. Mrs. Columbus, she had a full long day, and she saw the burgers and she just whipped them up fantastically. They tasted so great, and it was very little prep. She loved that. We love the fries. They come with the sides, which is always a huge benefit. And so it really takes the guesswork out of it, not only when you've had a long day, but when you want to have a great meal. It's a really excellent meal from top to bottom. And right now you can save 50% site-wide at omahasteaks.com, plus get an extra $30 off with the promo code 3ML and a $30 reward card when you shop early. We are really closing in quickly on Christmas. You've got steak lovers, you've got burger lovers, you've got seafood, chicken, wine, dessert lovers out there. Omaha Steaks has it all. Visit omahasteaks.com and save 50% off site-wide. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code, the number 3ML, and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code 3ML, the number 3ML. Minimum purchase may apply. All right, now to our crazy martini now, and I hope you're sitting down because I know the news that we're about to share with you is going to shock you. You might even need to hang on to something. Jim, it turns out that the failed Republican consultants who then created one of the greatest grifting scams in the history of politics called the Lincoln Project are on to another grifting scam. You write about this in part in your latest column for the Washington Post. And it reads like this. Rick Wilson, a former Republican political strategist and co-founder of the anti-Trump Lincoln Project, announced that he's a senior advisor to a new group called the 2+2 Coalition. According to the New York Times, the group plans to target Elon Musk and Rupert Murdoch by uncovering, quote, the hidden sources of disinformation and expose them for what they are, unquote, and operating, quote, as an opposition research firm, but with a military-grade intelligence gathering operation that went far beyond the document vetting typical of a political campaign, unquote. The coalition, according to the Times, has asked donors for a minimum investment of $1 million, cue your Dr. Evil Pinky, and was aiming for an annual budget of $10 to $15 million. So, you know, Trump's never going to be on the ballot again. So you got to have something going on to get the next beach house financed here, Jim. So what do you make of this one?
Yeah. So first, we should emphasize, as far as we know, it's just Rick Wilson. I don't know about anybody else associated with the Lincoln Project in this one. So this is the Rick Wilson who confidently was telling social media followers, Lincoln Project fans, you know, all those folks on social media, don't worry, we're going to win this one. And on now here's the thing. I picked Trump to win, but I thought Pennsylvania was going to be really close. And you know, so like it's by itself, making a wrong prediction does not mean that you're, you know, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs or something. But on election day, Rick Wilson was telling his followers on social media, quote, Trump's going to lose. He's going to lose badly. He's going to be wrecked. I don't know what the electoral college count is going to be at the end of this, but it's going to get loud and it's going to get hard for him. Their panic is extraordinary. They went on to go on about how tiny the crowds were for Trump's rallies, blah, blah, blah. Now, as listeners may have noticed, it did not turn out that way. In fact, you know, like, so the first thing is like, if you get the election that wrong, maybe we've seen the other thing floating around social media, a woman I've never heard of who describes herself as a political analyst, talks about going to the liquor store and buying champagne for Kamala Harris's impending victory. And she's talking with the guy at the, you're chuckling because you saw it. There's a guy behind who's the cashier who's, I guess, kind of, you know, she's like, are you excited about the election? He's like, yeah. And you can just kind of tell he's a Trump supporter. And it's like, I guess we'll see. And she's like, oh, no, Harris is going to win. And it's not even going to be close. She's going to win all the swing states. And she's going to win Iowa. They really believe that Stelter poll, huh? Okay. And she just kept it up there as, you're just so confident because she's a political analyst. She knows these things. Greg, you and I are political analysts. The first thing you admit as a political analyst that nobody knows anything. You never know until the votes are counted. Polls can be wrong. Indication, like all this stuff is kind of subjective. Well, it seems like they have crowd sizes, and I'm seeing a lot of yard signs and stuff like that. Until people go to the polls, you never really know for 100%. Sarah Gideon was going to beat Susan Collins in the main Senate race in 2020. Every poll had Gideon up by like 6 points minimum. And then Collins won comfortably, right? So you never know what's going to happen. But in this case, like, so first of all, Wilson, like if you're Rick Wilson, you have spent the last 8 to 9 years of your life dedicated to defeating Donald Trump. And oh, by the way, Lincoln Project ran into its own problems with you know, like, let me say, even Matt Gaetz can say, boy, those guys are really, you know, out of line with their actions. That's to give you perspective on that. But so if you're Rick Wilson, like, wouldn't you, like, I don't know, just like, wow, where did we go wrong? Why? You know, I know the Lincoln Project believes it single-handedly got Joe Biden elected in 2020. I think there's quite a few Democrats who'd say, horse pucky. You guys ran an ad here and there, and you want to lead the victory parade. But anyway, where did it go wrong? Why did this not work the way we expected? What was wrong with the messaging? Why is the electorate, after we put so much effort into insisting Trump was unelectable and unacceptable and all that stuff, why, you know, no pause, and immediately it's out to start a new organization that's going to target Elon Musk and Rupert Murdoch. By the way, private figures. I mean, I guess now, you know, Elon's on the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, which is basically a blue ribbon advisory panel. But here's the thing, like Elon Musk, and this is the point of my post column. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. He's clearly got Trump's ear. Now, Trump can be fickle. Maybe that'll change at some point in the future. But he's got Tesla. He's got Twitter. He's got SpaceX. He does amazing things. Yeah, he's erratic. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff he does. He's way too cozy with China for my taste. But this military-grade opposition research firm is going to take Elon Musk out? Really? You think like isn't the whole point about being the world's richest man? Like he's utterly uncancelable. What is this opposition research firm going to do? Kick him off Twitter? Sorry, X. I also point out many people have responded that the first evidence that Rick Wilson is never served in the military is that he thinks military grade is a compliment. But like, what are you going to find about Elon Musk? Where you're like, oh, that's it. He's canceled. Nobody's going to listen to him anymore. He's and so I contrasted it with Richie Torres, who's a Democratic congressman from the Bronx, and who just said, I don't understand how Musk turned into this punching bag of the left. I don't agree with a whole bunch of stuff he says, but I think SpaceX is pretty awesome. It's been very helpful for the U.S. space program. And I'm really impressed with Tesla electric cars. He's made electric cars cool. And so what wouldn't it be nice if we gave him credit for the stuff we like and criticized him for the stuff we don't like, and we just kind of went from there? And of course, people hate Richie Torres for this. How dare you do this? But like, those are the choices before the Democrats, not just for Elon Musk, but I think for the entire Trump administration, the Republican Congress coming with it is like, what if you said, hey, let's see what this, government efficiency program commission comes up with? Maybe they'll have some good ideas. And then you can say, hey, good idea. On paper, don't Democrats want efficient government? No, they don't. So anyway, so we'll see what happens. I don't think that Elon Musk is laying awake at nights wondering what Rick Wilson is up to.
No, probably not. Probably not. I've always had a little bit of a torn feeling about the Lincoln Project because on the one hand, they're completely lying about their influence and that the fact that they're still conservatives or Republicans or something. On the other hand, they're fleecing Democratic donors to the tune of tens of millions of dollars to turn out junior high level videos that really aren't done very well and don't actually have much impact. They targeted 6 or 7 Senate races in 2020 and lost all of them. And then they took credit for winning the 2 Georgia runoffs because it was allegedly their ads and not Republicans saying, don't trust the voting system, so don't show up and vote. Couldn't have been that. My feeling on Wilson has always been that he kind of made his name by being a trash-talking verbal street fighter in politics. And then he ran up against someone who was much better at it than him, and he can't handle it. And so he made going after Trump his mission in life, and now he's failed 2 out of 3 times in that department, and now he's going down this road. So either it's another total grifting scam, or the deep state is very real, and he's going to be having some figures who used to be there in contact with people who still are, and even then I'm not sure how much impact it'll have.
Greg, I kind of see the donations to the Lincoln Project, and I guess now this new 2+2 thing. You and I get a lot of complaints when Democratic ads run on this podcast. You and I have some control over the ads that we read out loud. We do not have control over the ads that are run on various podcasting platforms and things like that. Eventually, some of that money comes back to us. And so my attitude is better that their money comes to here and is wasted on an audience that is going to be really skeptical of anything they're saying, than to spend that money where it could actually have a good impact. So keep at it, Democrats. Money well spent. Keep going. You just need to spend more. Go for it, Rick Wilson. Let's get that vacation home.
That's exactly right. Oh, and by the way, they're still asking Doris for money, but it's not the Harris Walls campaign anymore. It's the Harris Fight Fund, which they claim is designed to help make sure they're accurate vote counts in these too close to call House races. It couldn't possibly, Jim, be to pay off her $20 million in debt after she blew through $1 billion over the last few months.
Greg, the Harris Fight Fund sounds like it's secretly run by Ed Norton and Brad Pitt. It's some underground.
Yeah, we can't.
Harris Fight Fund. Fight! You're taking on Tim Walz today. Hey, the thing is, you don't want to take on Harris's husband.
No, I hear he
will slap the... Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, he's got a good forehand, apparently. Anyway, Jim, have a great day. See you tomorrow. You are gone till Friday.
I am. Yes, I'm speaking down at... the Lemieux Center at Florida Atlantic University, and just doing other groups for National Review Institute. If you're going to be down there, I look forward to seeing you. If not, I will be back Friday. And, it's post-election time. It's time to go to Florida.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please subscribe to the podcast if you don't already and tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific Tuesday and join us again on Wednesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.